This is Tiffany Coates in the UK. I've motorcycled through over 80 countries and wild camped in virtually all of them. So I'm here today to tell you about wild camping, the dirty truth. So you've decided wild camping could be a part of your travels. So what kit do you need? I'm known for being quite a basic traveller, so I take a compact tent. A two-person one like this. It goes easily in the top box, optimising my luggage space. It's a freestanding dome tent, which means I can pitch it anywhere, on the frozen tundra of Siberia and the soft sands of the Sahara. Tent pegs don't need to go into the ground. I also camp on metal, concrete, tarmac, wood, the decks of ships, the car parks of customs buildings. I've had to put my tent up over the years. The tent is up, it's time to think about sleeping. I always use a sleeping mat. Initially I used to be much more hardcore and just slept on my jacket. These days I like my comfort. I take a 3/4 length Thermarest self-inflating mattress. Again, it folds away compactly and so doesn't take up too much space. I use this to give me a comfortable night's sleep on any of those surfaces I've already mentioned. On top of the sleeping mat goes the sleeping bag. This is where I really max out. I use a down-filled sleeping bag. I know they don't suit everyone. Synthetic is the choice for some people, but for me, doing the long-distance transcontinental journeys that I do, from the Arctic to the Antarctic, crossing the equator, I need something that will keep me warm, but also provides the coolness which down does. I use a silk sleeping liner inside it for the tropics when it does get warm. And then that way I've got a sleeping combination which can take me through all the different climate zones. Tent, mat, sleeping bag. The next thing is the torch. Don't rely on your phone. It could be stolen, it could be lost, the battery could be flat. Make sure you always have a backup source of light. I use a head torch. It's small and it gives me hands-free use so that I can repair my bike in dim conditions or be reading at night in the tent. Something that I do that maybe not many others do is I always carry my cooking stove. I use an MSR multi-fuel burner. It's very fast, it's very lightweight, and for me, the beauty of it, it fills up with petrol, and I've got a handy tap here on Thelma to fill it up. All ready to cook my dinner, or just to make that cup of tea in the morning and enjoy the peace and quiet of my surroundings.
So, hello. We've looked at the equipment and kit that you might take. Let's have a think about what sort of places and when you might put your tent up. Now, before I learnt to ride a motorbike and started travelling on two wheels, I'd gone around the world with my backpack. And over the years, I've done a lot of hiking and trekking, much of it solo, carrying everything I needed for days at a time and not travelling to any itinerary, which is something that appeals to me. And whilst trekking, I would just put my tent up at the end of each day as the sun set, wherever I happened to be. And I carried that ethos onto my motorbike travels. And of course, with an engine and two wheels, I can cross continents rather than countries. And I love it. I don't have to go into towns or cities to find accommodation. I can put up my tent wherever I like, somewhere beautiful. I can follow footpaths across mountains or go deep into deserts. And I have one main golden rule, and this picture sort of encapsulates it. It's either that nobody knows I'm there, or everyone knows I'm there, and there's safety in the community knowing that I'm around. So there are quite a few countries I've been in where I've been aware that there's hundreds of pairs of eyes watching every move I make. I'm the alien in their country, and everything I do is a sort of fascination. And I've realised there's no way I'm going to be able to put up my tent in a stealthy manner. So I'll head into the nearest village and I'll explain my situation and that I'm camping. And I've had to learn the word for tent in many languages. It could be palatka, karpa, hema. That's Russian, Spanish, Swahili, just to name a few. And usually a village elder is summoned, and she or he will tell me that I can have some land to camp on, maybe someone's garden, or take me to a house or a mud hut if I'm lucky. And sometimes it doesn't always work out like that though. I remember in southern Mexico once where they decided it was just too dangerous for the English señorita to be camping out on her own. And they took me to the local petrol station that was guarded. And they directed me to put my tent up. I did, on the far corner of the forecourt, on the concrete, as far away from the petrol pumps as possible. And I proceeded to have a very uncomfortable night. Not only was it very hot and humid, but the petrol station was open 24 hours a day. So lorries were thundering in and out, filling with fuel. The lights were blazing right through the night as well. And of course that guard, well, he was making regular rounds, and I'd see his shadow pass across the side of my tent each time he came along, with his Kalashnikov slung over his shoulder, taking his guarding duties very seriously. And it's nice to meet people who care and look out for me. Sometimes it could be something simpler. There's times when people want to come and share conversations, such as this, where they like to talk about where I've been, the places I've seen, and then also share their own dreams and aspirations of travel, magical moments and magical settings. And then sometimes as well, I'll be given water. So this village, this was in Madagascar. I'm staying in a small village compound. You can see the fence posts in the background. And there was no running water. And so my water bottles were filled from the well. And then someone appeared with this little bucket and insisted it was my water for washing with, which I was very grateful for. It's very hot in Madagascar. But what you can't see in this picture is the semicircle of 8 people squatting, watching my every move as I'm attempting to wash in front of them. That friendliness is really helpful because they'll also give me advice about the local area and advice about wildlife. Now, I've only been charged by a camel once, and that was quite a young one that veered off at the last moment, nothing like this big one. So camels aren't too dangerous, but what about lions? I pride myself on, when I'm riding the dirt tracks of Africa, being able to spot lion spoor as I'm going along. I will admit that for this one, I did sort of pause and take a good look around, make sure there was no lions nearby before I jumped off for a closer look at it. There's something more dangerous than lions. What about hippos? Don't be fooled by those cuddly vegetarians. They've got powerful jaws and sharp teeth. They can bite through a human very easily, and they don't have a very nice temper. So usually somewhere like this, there's hundreds of hippos along the length of this river. I was lucky. The far side of the river is in the Congo, and that's got a very shallow bank. And that was the side there the hippos were choosing to go out on each night to go and forage for food. On my side of the river, it's a 6-foot drop down to the water. And so I was able to put my tent up, and I had 2 great days there, camping on my own, listening to all the wildlife around me. However, the hippos, they were just a bit too noisy as nighttime companions with their grunts and barks, and they make all sorts of noises. The other end of the scale, what about those smaller creatures? They can be a bit annoying when you're traveling. Luckily, I'm not too scared of creepy crawlies or of spiders. This one I was just mesmerized by. It's absolutely beautiful. And sometimes those creepy crawlies are getting a little bit close for comfort. I don't think this was one of those poisonous tree frogs, but I wasn't taking any chances. I managed to shoo him away. And it's the mosquitoes, though, that you do have to be careful of. They can be disease carriers, and malaria is something I'm particularly wary about. There's been times when I've stayed in mud huts, which has always been a great honour to be invited in, and then I've amused the other inhabitants by setting my tent up inside the mud hut, just ensuring that I've got a mosquito-free zone in which to sleep. And what about the other risks, hazards, dangers? Well, I think probably the first one that is encountered is just getting to and from your remote camping route. Now, wild camping by its very nature is usually at some distance from any tarmac roads, so there's some off-road riding required. I always make sure I'm fairly confident about making that route safely, because I do a lot of solo stuff and I wouldn't want to have an accident somewhere remote. So I'll get my tent set up and just check out the route to get back again. And while I'm camping, I'll be thinking about what other risks sometimes. There can be wild campfires going on, massive bushfires coming across the land. There can be sandstorms and even flash floods. I've had to flee from all of those, but generally it's a very easy life on the road. Weather can be a bit of a problem. Eastern Siberia, I was the last rider through that year, although I didn't realise it at the time. I learnt my lesson on the first night when I woke up in the morning and my boots that I always keep in the porch of the tent were frozen solid. After that, I kept them inside next to my sleeping bag so that I could get them on again in the morning. And something else I discovered, every morning my tent was encased in a thin sheet of ice where my body heat and breath vapour had condensed and frozen. It meant I couldn't roll up my tent. I had to fold it very roughly and then strap it onto the back seat of the bike. And then as I was riding, it would gradually defrost during the day with a cold trickle of water running under my backside. Possibly the most dangerous weather I've encountered was a hurricane. This is actually Pennsylvania. I'd congratulated myself on finding a great wild camping spot, flat grass near some trees that would give me some shelter, or so I thought. However, during the night, a big storm blew in, and all of a sudden I was woken by a loud crashing noise. A big tree had crashed to the ground beside me. I grabbed my bike gear and ran out into the night. Now, I grabbed my bike gear not because it's valuable, but because it's waterproof. With a hurricane, it's not only strong winds, but also torrential rain. And as I ran, I was pulling on my boots, my jacket, my trousers, and even my helmet. I found a small shed nearby. It was locked, but at least I could huddle against it and shelter from the worst of the wind and the rain, until finally the storm stopped, the light came, and this was the sight that met my eyes. Lots of trees had come down. Miraculously, they'd fallen either side of my motorbike. But that orange shape in there, that was my tent that had been crushed by the trees. I'd had a very lucky escape. So perhaps don't camp near trees. How about something like this? And in the picture there, that's Annie, my mum's friend. She was nearly 60, had never even camped in her life when she decided she would come on one of my adventures. We spent 2 months crossing the stands, that's Central Asia, heading towards Mongolia. And this was in Kazakhstan. We had a great location. However, within an hour, the storm clouds had gathered and we encountered the most intense electrical storm I've ever seen. Bolts of lightning striking around us every few seconds, and the thunder was just deafening. Luckily, not all camping experiences are like that. Usually, they're much more serene. Somewhere like this is perfect, and with a source of water as well. I love to swim, and I'll start every morning going in the water. It could be a lake, a river, a waterfall, or the ocean. I've swum in the Arctic Ocean and I've swum off the southern tip of South America as well as 2 extremes. And so then you get thinking, well, what about washing? Well, my bottom line is I won't go more than 6 or 7 days without a shower. So I'll always try and find a shower then. And that's when I'll wash my clothes as well, because life on the road can get a little bit grubby. And life on the road as well can involve camping on different surfaces. This one was a 2 out of 10. Okay, it's on a bit of a slope, but it was relatively flat. But it was fairly hard and there was a few stones around, but the view's more than made up for it. And then this gets offset by the 10 out of 10 spot, my favourite camping spot of all time. This is in Labrador, and I'm camped on the famous reindeer lichen, which provides a really soft, springy mattress. I'd had a very traumatizing day. I'd been chased by wolves that day, so to lie back on something that feels like a feather bed is just incredible. So then we get the comfortable times and the not so comfortable. Sometimes I'm just so tired that I'll fall asleep anywhere. This is an afternoon siesta on the hard ground of Tajikistan, fast asleep on my jacket, with the vehicles all trundling past me just inches from my feet. And beyond that, we have the campfires. Now, I'm from the UK, where we have a lot of damp weather, So we're not usually very good at building campfires. It's taken me a while. There's nothing I like more than the pleasure of sitting back, enjoying the moon and the stars above me, and also having cooked my dinner on a fire. Which brings us to the fact that with wild camping, there's a lot of wild eating. I've enjoyed hundreds and hundreds of meals, sat on the ground outside my tent, just looking around while I'm eating. So, where are the best places to go wild camping? Scotland's supposed to be very good. There's a lot of free to roam camping, but this is Japan. Apparently you can camp anywhere in Japan, and I took that very much at face value. That is the most incredible view of Mount Fuji in the background, and I was on the lakeside. My tent was just behind there where the bike is, nobody else around at all. The best places of all for wild camping though are those countries with nomadic traditions, where they don't blink an eye as I turn up on my motorbike, have a look around, and I stick my own tent up and I move into the neighbourhood, maybe for a day or two, keeping a respectful distance from my neighbouring yurts, but enjoying conversations and the same great views as them. It's a wonderful life. So we've looked at the equipment and the kit that you'll need, and we've looked at the various places to camp and what to look out for. All you need to do is head off on your own bike now and have your own wild camping adventure.
Wild camping, the dirty truth. And the truth is, it's for those who really want to enjoy getting off the beaten track and appreciating this wonderful wilderness that we have around us. Wild camping is the way to go.